Hello, 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 everyone. Welcome to another episode of Sree's daily global COVID-19 show. My name is Sree Sreenivasan, and it's my honor to convene this daily conversation around all things COVID-19. And tonight is Sunday night, which means we focus on positivity. We try to keep things generally positive despite every rotten thing going on. We interview positive, purposeful people who can get us ready for the week. We're always looking for guest ideas. Sree@sree.net. Tonight is our 194th episode. We've been on the air for 194 straight days. That means no days off for weekends, vacations, holidays, nothing. Since the pandemic started, we've been on every single day. We have a very special guest for you tonight. Alexander Rossides is here with us, founder and president of the Social Impact Exchange at SI Exchange. He's the founder of social impact organizations, the College Assistance Program and Corporate Community Initiative. And he has a big conference that's coming up this week, the annual conference of the Social Impact Exchange. He's going to be talking all about that and the amazing lineup of speakers. And the agenda is just action-packed and looks fabulous. So we'll be hearing all about that in just a minute. And you'll meet Alex very soon. Hi, everybody. I'm Sree. Thank you for being here. I'm the Marshall Loeb Visiting Professor of Digital Innovation at the Stony Brook School of Journalism and the co-founder of Digimentors, a social, digital, and virtual events consulting company. Our motto, don't cancel your event without talking to us first. We've arranged and made events for 50 people and 100,000 people. I bet your conference is somewhere between those two numbers. We would love to help. My email is right here, sree@sree.net. We are always grateful for people who are able to join us. In our first 175 episodes or so, we had 1 million plus viewers, 129 million plus social impressions, 316 guests, 185 of them women. We're constantly trying to up that ratio from 63 cities, 17 countries, including the chief scientist of the World Health Organization. You can find our archives at youtube.com/Sreenet. And we are in partnership with Scroll Global and Scroll.in. Please follow and check out both of them. We're able to do this because of two groups of folks who make this possible, our wonderful sponsors, who we'll tell you about a little bit later, and our awesome producers, who I'll tell you about now. Please follow Rose Horowitz at Rose Horowitz 31 and Vandana Menon, Vandana_Menon. Both of them are fantastic journalists who started this ride with me 194 days ago and had no idea what they were signing up for. And so I'm so grateful to them for all their hard work every single day, not a one day off since March 14th or so. Thank you all for being here. And to all of you who have written in to say this show is uplifting, that this show is a lifeline, I can tell you that it's a lifeline to me, and so helpful for me to be with all of you and to have thousands of people gather every single day like this is so meaningful. All right, are you ready for some upliftment? Are you ready for some positivity? Are you ready to learn, as I always do on all of these shows? Please tell us where you're watching from. Please comment. We're live right now on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube, and on LinkedIn. When I asked my guest to share this furiously on Twitter and Facebook, he said he can't because he's not on it. And I thought, wow, that itself will make him a more upbeat, positive person, not obsessed like the rest of us are with all of this social media. So we'll ask him about that and so much more. Our guest again is Alexander Rossides, and here he is, the founder and president of the Social Impact Exchange. So let me bring him on to say hello. Hi, Alex.
Hi, Sree. How are you?
Thank you so much for being here. My first question always is, how are you? Where are you? And how's your family handling the pandemic so far?
Well, thank you, Sree, for having me. And actually, thank you for this show. 194 days is incredible, and it's important to lift up all of the things that relate to COVID. So thank you. I'm well. Thank you for asking. I am in New York City, where I live with my wife and twin daughters, 8 years old. And we've been in New York primarily for the duration of the pandemic so far. We spent a few weeks in a wonderful town in Guilford, Connecticut. But otherwise, we've been in New York, and thankfully everybody is healthy so far. Feel very fortunate for that. There's so many that are just going through difficult times. So we feel very fortunate. And a shout out to the folks in New York City, the essential workers and the healthcare workers who've just done an incredible job in such difficult circumstances. So yeah, we're okay. And I thank you for asking.
Well, I'm so glad to hear that. We are proud of our New Yorkers. We were, as you know, watching in horror as things spiked in China and in Europe, and watching then suddenly as we became the epicenter of all the epicenters in the world, and right here in New York. And then we watched in horror as the rest of the country started rising in these cases. And we are very proud of our New Yorkers, the enormous sacrifice that was made, thousands of people dead, thousands and thousands of people unemployed. And we really did the work. It's not over yet, but so much has been done. But we feel like people didn't learn from us about the importance of following the strict rules that we were enforcing here. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, it is truly unfortunate that some of what we learned and the difficulties that we went through, and it's in lives and just great tragedy. I think it does point to the importance of leadership and the importance of listening to the public health experts. There's a reason why they've spent and dedicated their lives to health. I just, we really probably did not need to suffer as great a loss nationally as we have. And let us hope that now, with greater numbers of folks wearing masks, we work on these issues in my nonprofit organization. We'll try to keep the numbers down as much as possible. And soon we'll have, hopefully, a vaccine. And just for everyone out there, be as safe as you can. Wear your masks, keep your distance. It's just the most important thing to save lives. And we'll get through it together. This is the Sunday show, as you mentioned, and there have been unbelievable acts of courage and sacrifice, definite hardships when we can't see loved ones, but people have been coming together and giving each other strength to get through it. And that just turn to your fellow family and friends and just fellow neighbors, and we will get through this together.
I'm already feeling positive and upbeat after listening to you. So thank you. You're also the father of twins like I am. We've got a dozen years or so on your kids, but we are just, I love hearing your ideas around just listening to the authorities and following the science. I think is so important. One of the reasons we are together here tonight is to hear about this big conference you have this week. So we want to hear about it right away. I'm going to pull it up on stage here so that people can see it. It's called The Exchange, Scaling Impact Together, the Social Impact Exchange, and presented with Morgan Stanley. And it's about unifying leadership. So I want to hear all about it. And then we will take a look. There are comments coming in from people watching all over the world. People love the Sunday night show because of the positivity angle. So I love it when we can highlight nonprofits and social impact organizations, and that's clearly what you are doing.
Thank you, Sree. Well, the conference is an amazing gathering. It is the annual conference of our nonprofit, the Social Impact Exchange, which is a national membership association, multi-sector members, and it's dedicated to achieving large-scale impact in the social sector and in society, and primarily through systemic change and collaborative networks. So collaborative networks working together to drive systemic change. And the conference is our annual gathering, and we bring together leaders from government, business, philanthropy, nonprofits, academia, and it's with the sole focus of how do we drive large-scale change. And the hallmark of the conference this year, it's all online, Wednesday and Thursday of this week, September 23 and 24. And the hallmark of the conference is that, one, we don't shy away from the tough conversations. We want to look at reality and see where we need to improve. And the second hallmark is that we drive towards action. So we're attempting to educate and learn together, but we want to provide, and we do, opportunities for folks to engage, to get involved. And so there's tons of wonderful initiatives and nonprofits that folks can learn about and then get engaged in, volunteer, support. And so that's what really makes the conference this year. The online nature of it, we can't hug each other, we can't shake hands, but it does afford the opportunity to bring some folks in that don't normally get a chance to speak. And so we have over 25 CEOs and founders, business, philanthropy, foundations, and community leaders. And we're going to tackle, how do we drive systemic change, systems change? How do we change the underlying ways in which our society works, and look at it from a number of perspectives. Some of the meta sort of big systems like capitalism and racism and democracy, and other big systems like health and education. And that's what really excites me, is that we get to root causes and learn about how we can fundamentally shift towards a more equitable society. So it's really a special gathering, and you can go to the socialimpactexchange.org website to learn how you can sign up. And it's very inexpensive this year. We did that on purpose. So it's really wonderful, and I learn every year.
Love hearing that. And here's Brian Schulman saying, "Hey, Sree, another great guest and show radiating positive vibes on LinkedIn Live." So that's awesome. Thank you, Brian. So let's talk about some of the very specific topics that you have on here, and then we'll look at the guests, because the guests are also, the guest speakers are amazing. So I see the first couple of bullet points here, so I'll just let you go through each of them. Let's start with racial inequality.
Sure. So one of the things that we think about when we think about systemic change is, what's the purpose of a system, and what kinds of mindset shifts are important? Sometimes changing attitudes and beliefs are more effective than rushing to change laws or rules and regulations. And so when we think about racism in this country, the conference and in general, we look at it in the following way, that racism is embedded into our systems. You've heard the term probably systemic racism, certainly with the killing of George Floyd, the tragic death, and other unarmed Black individuals. This has become an important discussion. And previously, the notion of systemic racism had not had as much currency. And what it really means, and what we'll tackle in the conference session, is how it's woven into many of our structures and the way we operate without really being conscious of it. So when we say systemic racism, we're talking about attitudes. Often, there's obviously overt racism, and that's to be confronted head on. But there's also the unconscious biases that all of us possess for various things. And it's really quite important in terms of if we're going to address racism in the United States and globally, to understand where those biases lie. That's a personal journey of getting to know life perspectives of lots of diverse people and listening to their life experience and realizing that if you are a person of color in the United States, you will experience racism and bias and discrimination in your life. And understanding that for folks that are white and have not experienced it is a really important personal journey. And if you think about that en masse, it's a critical step in shifting attitudes and mindsets to better understand that experience. There's a historical set of events that have shaped the way the United States operates, and it's inequitable for people of color in many ways. And so that's one of the things that we think about. The sessions at the conference will describe what we mean by systemic racism. The sessions will also tackle the kinds of narrative changes that would be really important for us to acknowledge the inequities. And then we'll talk about some of the things that we can do to shift our systems, whether it's in the financial field or health or education, to root out and dismantle systemic racism. And that's more explicit in terms of laws and things like that. And we could talk a little bit more about that. But we look at it really as a first and foremost understanding and a mindset, and then what can we do in terms of actual structures and things like laws. And the speakers are just amazing.
And we're going to show the speakers in a little bit. I do want you to address this. The president and almost everyone in his cabinet, when asked multiple times if systemic racism is a problem in this country, have said no. And in one case, when Bob Woodward asked about white privilege to President Trump, he accused him of having drunk the Kool-Aid and that there is no such thing. So as someone who is white yourself, how do you explain this and how do you get people to understand? I know that people of color say this all the time, but I think it's really important for people who are white to say that themselves.
Yeah, and if I may, I will borrow from, and I'm not a historian and expert on Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and just to tribute to her at this sad time, mourning her death. But one of the things that I did read about her is that she first, as she was a leader, a trailblazer in women's rights. And, she argued cases in front of the Supreme Court and, all male Supreme Court. And to begin the process of changing laws or interpreting laws, the 14th Amendment, to protect the rights of women, she first, early on, took the approach of education, of really educating the justices, who obviously well-intentioned in every respect, but really did not have a clear understanding of what she was arguing before them and how the lives of women and women were discriminated against. And I take that approach first because I just think it's important to seek to understand and then be understood. And this whole educational process is so important. And that's why I suggested talking to folks, reading, and understanding the experience that people of color have in this country. And for well-intentioned folks, I think that they will come to the conclusion that people of color do not have a fair shot at thriving the way most, not all, whites have. And there's other kinds of inequities, still towards women, still towards low-income individuals. So racial equity is not the only inequity that is in the United States, but it's certainly foremost in many of our minds. And so to the president and the cabinet, what I would say is the following. I would say that it is really important to know that nobody is trying to attack the United States to say it's an awful place, that it's un-American, to point out these inequities, and that they are deeply woven into our laws. Redlining is still persists, into the way that capital flows in this country, to the way that education is financed through property taxes that favor wealthy neighborhoods, K-12 education, in so many ways. And so it's not that anybody is attacking at all the US or whites. It's to say we can do better. We can do better by all of our people, by creating a fair playing field, an equal opportunity to thrive. And that is the hallmark of our country, is to adapt, innovate, do better than we have done before. Were our founding fathers perfect? Absolutely not. But they were amazing. And yet we can improve on what has gone before. So that's to learn and listen. I think most well-intentioned folks will come to the conclusion that there are racial inequities and other inequities, and we're just trying to, achieve our ideal of equal opportunity to thrive as life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
By the way, you use the word well-intentioned, so that rules out a lot of the people we're talking about, unfortunately. And we'd also have to say that the way all of this has come together, you talk about redlining, it is known that the first time this president became famous was because he and his father were practicing redlining themselves when they were sued by the federal government, a government that one day candidate Trump would run for and then become president of, for discriminating against Black people. That's how he landed on the national scene. So to tell him something about redlining when he was a redliner himself tells you how complicated and difficult this is.
But for the American people, I think it's important not to listen to the attack that it's un-American to point out inequities. That in fact it is the most patriotic thing to do, so that we can create, again, the country we aspire to, which is that folks have an equal opportunity to succeed on their merit. And some folks will say, well, look, they can point to people who have succeeded against all odds to be successful, even though they came from very difficult backgrounds. And so they point to them and say, well, they were able to do it, or I was able to do it. But the point is that you should not have to be exceptional to succeed, to have to succeed against the odds of a poor K-12 education, where you have expectation biases that you're not going to succeed and therefore are put into lower rung classes, where you don't have enough money to pay for college, where you will experience bias in the job market. I mean, so we should recognize that the ideal here is that we all have a fair shot, and Americans believe that, and they believe in opportunity and fairness, and that's the message. Let's create a society where we can all thrive. Would talk about positivity, we would really grow and all boats would rise, and our economy and lots of other things would do a lot better.
Thank you. Ainsley says, that's my schoolmate. Hi, Alex.
Yes, Ainsley, it's nice to at least see your face on the screen. Yes, high school. Hi, Ainsley. I hope you're well.
Well, you've got to tell us which high school, and then she has to write in with some secrets that about you, and then you can talk about her as well.
We were very fortunate. We went to a wonderful high school, Sidwell Friends School in Washington, D.C. It's a Quaker school, and for the most part, the values of a Quaker religion. Very few people there were Quaker, less than 1%. But the values of the school were very strong, and we were very fortunate, and we made lots of good friends. And one of the ethoses of a Quaker school is to contribute to your society and to volunteer and to get engaged and also to reflect. A very, very important principle of reflection. And I just think that in our current society is really important. It takes time to reflect and to think, and it's always so rush now, right?
Yeah, it certainly is. The first time I heard of Sidwell Friends was, I believe, when Al Gore's kids were going there when he was vice president. Could that have been the case?
Yeah, I think Jimmy Carter's daughter, Amy, went to Sidwell, and the Obama kids did. So it's when I was there, we didn't have any president or vice presidential children. It's probably a good thing. But yes, and so because it affords a chance for kids to be creative, express themselves, and it's a very nice environment.
Excellent.
Very fortunate.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, folks, I hope you will share this conversation. We have a lot to talk about with Alex Rossides. He's going to tell us more about the amazing conference that he has put together. And you can see it's the Exchange 2020 Nonprofit Conference presented by at SI Exchange. And you can get more information about it as well at socialimpactexchange.org. and find out all about it and sign up. The rates are very reasonable, as he said, and we've had already Pradnya and Pradnya saying that she's going to go sign up right as soon as this is over, and Ashok has said the same thing. So folks, please do that. I'm going to now take a quick break so that Alex can catch his breath, get some water, and normally I would tell people to check their Facebook and comment, but he's not on Facebook. He's not on Twitter. Look at his serene, happy face. So we'll ask him about that just before we go. Tell us about not being on these social platforms.
I guess it's a conscious and an unconscious decision. I grew up in an environment that you sort of focused on the people you were with, and never have been tied to my cell phone and checking messages all the time, probably to the chagrin of some of my friends and family, and I apologize for that. But just has enabled me to be in the moment, just to be with the folks I'm with, and so far it's worked out fine. And I do feel that some of those social media platforms are really very helpful in terms of connecting people. And so it's not obviously all of these they come with their pluses and their minuses, and we have to use them and channel them well, and they get infiltrated and all those things. But for me, it was really more just to be able to be where I am at the moment.
Those of us with children would benefit if we could say, look at us, we are not on social, so get off your cell phone. It's much harder when mom and dad or parents are on their phones all the time. But so you're setting a great example for your kids. So I like hearing that.
Well, that's sweet of you. They still get influenced. They get influenced at school, and et cetera. And before long, they're gonna probably be ordering me. My twin daughters rule the world, and so, or at least mine. And so I'm sure they'll be pushing. But yeah, just to be in the moment and also just interact with each other. It's just you learn so much that way, and your brain grows. So anyway.
Right, well, I love hearing that. And we're going to give you a little break to catch your breath. And let's thank our sponsors. And folks, please tag your friends. Isn't this a great conversation? We're learning so much and the value of helping other people. And as you can see in his case, it started all the way back in school. And he'll tell you about the other organizations he's founded. And he could have done anything in the world. Why he chose to work in the nonprofit space will be especially interesting for all of us to hear about. But let's thank our sponsors for helping us put this show together. We want to thank Nunbelievable, divinely delicious cookies on a mission. Each handcrafted cookie provides a meal to those in need. One cookie equals one meal. 20% off with the code SREE, SREE. Please sign up and please check out nunbelievable.com. We're also grateful to The Inventor in You, a step-by-step guide to your first invention by Charles Cunnincarroll, developer of more than 80 patents at Inventor Charles and guide to invention.com. Additional promotional help provided by and please check out hotstar.com/US. We're also very grateful to She's on Call, the show put together by my awesome friends and surgeons, Dr. Sujana Chandrasekhar and Dr. Marina Kurian. And they had a great show today. It's on Sundays at 11 a.m. Eastern. It's really an evergreen show, Facebook and Twitter and YouTube at She's on Call. They had a vascular surgeon and a urogenital surgeon talking today. Please check out their show and follow and subscribe. You will learn a lot, I promise. And we also want to tell you that today we also have another show that we do in the mornings, 8:30 to 10:15 a.m., my Sunday New York Times read-along. Today, our executive producer, Neil Parikh, stepped in to be the guest host as he talked to his former colleague. He's now VP of Events and Communications at my company, Digimentors. And he was talking to Suzanne McCormick, U.S. President of United Way Worldwide, the world's largest private charity. And she was terrific. They had a great conversation, and they read the New York Times. So please check out this. You can find all of these on my archive, all episodes of the read along on my archive at youtube.com/SreeNet. So let's get ready to bring Alex back on screen. He has a big conference he's telling us about and so much more. I also like him because he's a fellow father of twins. And as you will see, if you're just joining me and missed the first part, he and I have very similar hairstyles. So here we go.
I have to credit my wife for that because, and Michael Jordan, who made it popular. Yeah, Yul Brenner didn't quite get us there. Michael Jordan did. And my wife said to me about a year into our dating, oh, you got to take it all off.
So you're, in your case, your hair, you took it off to be, you shave it, or
I was balding quite a bit, and she just said, "Finish it off, finish it off." Yeah, exactly. There you
go. I've not quite had the full courage to take it all off, but I try to keep it as close as I can, and these are tiny things to worry about in the rest of the state of the world.
Yeah, well, that's quite true. That's quite true. And I just want to applaud one of your sponsors, the buy a cookie and get a meal, Sree. It's wonderful, and I will do that. And it speaks volumes about the advancement of social purpose companies too, and for benefit companies, which we could certainly use a lot more of.
Well, let me ask you about that. And by the way, that company is nunbelievable.com, and we're always grateful to all our sponsors. I want to ask you about specifically, you could have done anything with your life, and you went on to form, at least as far as I could tell, at least 3 social purpose, nonprofit, social impact, all these terms exist, companies. So why did you do that? And why not go out and make a lot more money than you could have?
it's a good question, but it's an easy question for me to answer in some respects. I really just comes from the family. I think mostly, and school probably where the influences were. But my mother and father, particularly my father, spent his life in essentially public service. He was really just an incredible leader. He was a I'll just share this with you, Sree, but he was a star football player back in the 40s at Columbia University, and he was a quarterback. And anyway, they had an amazing team, and they upset the team that had been winning for 3 years running, Army, and one of the first televised games. And that just sort of set up his career in a way. He became Assistant Secretary of Treasury, and he worked in the Eisenhower administration when he was younger. He went to law school, and then he was in later Assistant Secretary of the Treasury, and then later founded a nonprofit to advance Greek American relations. We are of Greek descent. And there it is. Well, and unfortunately, we did lose my father this past May, which was sad for us. He had a long, accomplished career, but he always did the right things. He just had. He was very determined, but he had just an incredible sense of integrity. He was the first person to hire and swear in women into the federal law enforcement, and he did that over the objections of J. Edgar Hoover. He fought for the rule of law, and he was an example to us growing up. And he also had a unifying way of being a leader. He brought organizations together to coalesce and do more together. And that just from early on, I think this is just by osmosis. He was also, by the way, he would help anybody who asked, and we constantly, so many people who tell us that he helped them in any which way. And so is this example, and my mother was just always there, steadfast, loving, both of them. We just knew my father really as a great dad. And my mother, who was always just so level-headed and always talking about the right values growing up. And I think it just, by osmosis. And in school, we mentioned Sidwell Friends, there was a real ethos to give back, to do community service. I do wish, and that's part of our discussion about equity, I wish that all kids everywhere would have that kind of education. I mean, that's what we aspire to. And those values seep in. And so for me, it was always about, well, what can you do to make the world a better place? What's the biggest thing I could do to make the world a better place? And so from very early on, I just knew that I would try to learn as much as I can in different walks of life, and then try to apply it in the social sector, nonprofit sector, and not just the nonprofit sector, the social sector. So it's government, it's social purpose business, it's nonprofits, because we shouldn't have this divide of just nonprofits. It should be the goal of all of us to engage. In ancient Greece, in the democracy of Athens, the city-state, it was a great speech by Pericles. It was a funeral oration, but he basically said anybody who's not contributing to the city, we don't just ignore them. They're worthless to us. And that was the ethos for a healthy democracy. We all can do it in our own ways. But for me, it was my lifelong goal. And so I was able to be very fortunate. I learned a lot. I was able to start some nonprofits along the way. And then to business school and eventually to the venture capital field. And I met a lot of folks who were interested in giving back. but didn't know how. And the seeds of a nonprofit grew from that. Maybe we can, match a lot of donors to nonprofits, and the way that evolved into a social impact exchange. And we realized that if you want to have population level impact, and this is about 10 years of learning and not getting it right, to start, is to look at how we can change our underlying systems in this country, our structural changes. That's the way you get to population level change, our criminal justice system, our education system, our health system. So I've been very fortunate, and it was just something that was inside.
First of all, our deep condolences to you and the family. I can't imagine losing your father in the middle of the pandemic. Must have made it extra difficult.
Well, it was very hard because we couldn't be there, and we couldn't get. So many Americans have had the similar situation where they could not be with their loved ones at that moment. And we were lucky because we all knew the depth of love, and but you still want to be there. So that was hard, and I thank you. And I bring it up because it's relevant to the question, and it's important to hold up, our examples in life. And my heart goes out to all those others who have suffered during this time and not been able to be with loved ones. And just hang in there, and we will get through this.
And he was 92 years old, which is...
Yes. He was 90. He did live a good life, and he gave so much back. And I think that's part of living a good life, right?
It really is. I did want to point out that this great photo that the Times used is from his football days. I can see the features apart from the hair. I can see the features there with your dad. And
later in life, he lost his hair. We looked a lot alike.
By the way, there's a great moment in, I don't know if you've seen any of the Billy Joel shows in Madison Square Garden. Have you had a chance?
My wife won. I haven't yet had a chance.
So in one of those that I got to go to, sitting in the nosebleeds, there's Billy playing the piano and singing, and there's a giant screen above his head, and he looks up at one moment. There's obviously over many years he's done this, and says, "Oh my God, what's my dad doing here?" Because we all remember Billy as this young, handsome man, and now he's grown old and lost his hair, and then he looks up and he says, "Oh my God, my dad's here." And similar thing.
Well, and it's funny. I just mentioned one other thing because it's relevant. My father, whenever he gave a talk or a speech, he would always start it thanking all the people that helped him along the way. He came from a very humble background in Brooklyn. They had nothing. They lost what they had in the Depression. And from his mother, his single mother, his father passed away when he was 3 months old, to the fifth grade teacher, to the professor who took an interest in him in college, to everybody along the way. And I just think that the reason I mention it is that is an example. None of us get where we are on our own. This notion, just pull yourself up by your own bootstraps. That saying is actually making a joke of the notion that anybody can do it alone, because you can't pull yourself up by your own bootstraps. Think about it. It's not possible. And then it got turned around. But my point is that we are afforded, even if you come from humble backgrounds, we are afforded help along the way. And yet so many are not. And this is very important to understand that that's part of creating a fair playing field and giving people the chances, the opportunity, because people want to thrive and succeed. So I bring it up for that reason.
Yeah, it's really striking to think about the importance of that. I do want to just say that it's fascinating that your father had this incredible career, served 2 presidents, and even the Times leads in the headline with led Colombia to historic upset of army. Did your family discuss this after it ran?
Yes. Well, the thing about the football being such a big thing is that in those days, the college football was the biggest thing. And it was one of the first televised games. So people came up to me all during my life and said, "Are you related to Gene Rossides?" And I would tell them I was. And then they would say, "I watched that game on a little TV set this big with 40 people hanging around." And so the thing is that he really tried to then use that. He was drafted, but decided to go to law school. Again, he was fortunate. People gave him a hand in that because he didn't have the money to do it. And so, and he always tried to, I mean, he was a striver in terms of making, the world a better place. And even if you don't devote your life to the nonprofit world, and it's one of the things that we'll highlight in our conference, because we have many philanthropists that attend, and this year anybody really can attend, is that there's so many different ways to get involved. And it's really a hallmark of our democracy.
I do want to point out how quickly our 40-minute, it's already 45 minutes into our conversation, and we feel like we've covered a lot, but not enough. I just want to read some of the comments of people who are watching. Our friend Jonathan Borstein, who has watched 194 episodes in a row. Thank you, Jonathan, as always. You're awesome. Rehajan is watching from Long Island. Thank you for your support. Jennifer McGuire is here. Ashok is watching from Kerala in India. Have you been?
No. I would love to go though. Because our girls get a little older, we do plan to try to travel.
We're all trying to figure out travel, right? Ashok is watching and says it's been uplifting for me all these days to be here. Ashok himself and his daughter both got COVID, but are now clear and doing well. Pradnya is watching from Silver Spring, Maryland. Give us that's just outside of DC, the DC area. Give us a favorite DC memory.
DC memory.
You grew up there, obviously, because your father was at the administration.
I was fortunate to, in those days, you could play on the playgrounds and just go up to there's lots of different playgrounds in Washington with the playground directors. And this one playground director.
Sorry, I've not heard that term, a playground director.
They would have directors on the playground that would work with the kids to play, all kinds of games in basketball and paddle tennis and baseball. We used to cram into the back of our playground directors Impala, 10 kids, and go to different parts of Washington, D.C. and play. But he also got us involved, my family, in something called the Youth Games. And this was a competition between cities, mostly on the East Coast, about 15 cities, and basketball and tennis and swimming and track. And predominantly, the kids who played were African American, and this was kind of playgrounds in the inner cities of inner neighborhoods of these cities. And but we got involved, and it was such a wonderful experience. We had the best time with my sister and brother also did it. We happened to be decent tennis players, both of them better than me. But we all played, and we won our Washington, D.C. tournament, and we got to travel to the youth games. They held them in a different city each year. And the folks that I met, it was just such a welcoming, wonderful learning environment, the tennis, the people. And that's not something you could do probably these days as much. The playgrounds aren't funded as much and that type of thing. But that was one of my best memories of growing up in Washington.
Rose Horowitz, our colleague, is tweeting away and sharing. And we have lots of great comments coming here from folks. And Pradnya says that she's going to go sign up. And so is Ashok is going to sign up as well. Stefan says, Sunday positivity, the only way to start the week. Wonderful to be here as always. He is one of our colleagues at Digimentors. And Rick Botello says, great to connect with kindred thinkers. How can we cultivate equity, thought leadership, development movements to redress the injustices of isms? And he's written a LinkedIn piece. So everyone, find Rick Botello and check that out. And Tota says good morning because it's already morning in India. And Paulo is watching from West Caldwell, New Jersey. He used to be in Las Vegas and joined us for a show about COVID in Las Vegas. What is one Las Vegas memory you can share with us, Alex, that is, I guess, PG or able to be shared with everyone watching?
I have not spent a lot of time in Las Vegas, but I have gone on 2 occasions, and they were family friendly trips, and just enjoyed the sights and a roller coaster. And that's when I learned that I was really getting to be older, because it was a mini roller coaster, but it scared the wits out of me. So and so I've enjoyed Las Vegas more from a family friendly time. And gambled occasionally, but not a ton.
Chris Gorman's watching from New York City. He's a former colleague of mine at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, and he works at the American Folk Art Museum, and they are open again, like a lot of places, and he's great. And look at this nice comment. Edith Orenstein says, "Shout out to Alex. You were great at advising me and Bob Krug back in 91 or 92 when you helped us plan a panel, spoke on the panel at the New York State Society of CPAs on professional volunteerism." That's 30 years of memories.
Well, that's so sweet. And when folks ask, you feel like you have to give back and help in any way that's possible. So those are the many little things, right, in life. And as I said, I just couldn't believe how many notes and letters we've gotten about my father, just sort of helping folks along the way. That's more important than anything, right?
Sure, and that's important. I'm just curious if you actually remember this panel vaguely from 30 years ago.
Vaguely, and probably
it shows, Alex, that people, that you help will remember you more than you might yourself, because you're helping so many people.
And I always say, you never know. We all have selective memories. It's just what hits us, and I remember certain things that nobody else does in my family and friends, and so you never know what you might say to a child. I remember certain things that relatives would say that just stuck with me forever, and so you're right. Just always be conscious that what you say and how you interact with folks is meaningful, and that's one of the points we were talking about earlier about equity and racial bias and things. Just the more we listen, the more that we'll be able to say the things that are helpful versus accidentally unhelpful.
Sure. Diane says, want to thank Keisha Center, also a guest on my COVID show with Sunny Slaughter, for introducing us to Alex and his social impact exchange. And Apollo says, deepest condolences, Alex. May you and your loved ones be comforted.
That's so sweet. And Keisha is one of our board members, and I'm so delighted. She joined the board this year, and she's a powerhouse, and she works in the field of financial inclusion. And if I might, Sree, I just mention that this is going to be one of the highlights of our conference. We'll have Darren Walker, the president of the Ford Foundation, Beth Ford, who's the CEO of Land O'Lakes Butter, and that company is a farm co-op. It's owned by farmers, and Mandel Crawley, the head of wealth management at Morgan Stanley. And it's going to be a fascinating discussion. And what's important about that discussion is they are focusing on how do we reimagine capitalism? What's the future of capitalism? How can we make capitalism more equitable? And it really goes to the purpose of capitalism and the purpose of companies. I think you probably, most folks know that the Business Roundtable came out last year with their statement of purpose of the corporation. And they stated that the purpose of a corporation is to benefit all stakeholders, not just maximizing shareholder value, but the employees, the consumers, the community. And this is a sea change. 181 CEOs signed that. And if we want to change systems, this is a critical piece. one key lever is the goal of a system. If a goal of a system is just to make money, then you are going to get situations where that's all people try to do and they really don't care about social value. But if it really takes hold that the purpose is both social value and profit equally, or even primacy of mission, then you will have the advancement of for-benefit corporations. The Congress and the Fed can support them with tax breaks and other incentives, and they become, for-benefit companies become the standard corporate model. And that's a way to really change a system where you're both doing social good and turning a profit. Very important. And then, cascading down, you can look at very important things. We talked about redlining. We talk about how money flows. You have very few money managers in this country that are people of color. And that's a piece of the systemic inequities and racism. But these are things that they're going to talk about that we can shift and change. Really important systemic changes. We can't just say, play around the edges, and we really have to go all in to transform our systems.
I couldn't agree more. And I'm looking at this incredible lineup, including a panel of Beth Ford, the Sea of Land O'Lakes, and Darren Walker, who is an incredible person who everyone should follow on Twitter and get to know. And you can watch both of them at this conference that's taking place this week. So please find the SI Exchange, go on Twitter, go on their website, find SI Exchange, Social Impact Exchange, and learn about the organization and check out these events. They are truly world-class events that are taking place, and it's all virtual, so everybody can participate, which is, of course, part of the idea. We only have a few minutes left here with Alex. I do want to ask you a couple of questions about your work and where it's going. I'm also curious to hear. We had mentioned Columbia Law School, and you got your MBA at Columbia. And Columbia Law School is where Ruth Bader Ginsburg first made her mark. So that's so interesting. Talk about the importance of the work that you put in when you're still in school that helped you later. You've talked a lot about your high school and your elementary school and how that influenced you, but talk about the rest of your academic journey and what are the lessons from what you learned in that process that helped you become successful.
Yes, and let me start by just saying that it's invaluable to get your college and your credential, post-secondary credential, and I will share with you what happened to me in graduate school. But just first wanted to say that we know that in the 21st century, we are going to need highly skilled workers. And there is no reason that being unable to pay for college or community college should prevent so many millions from going. And so I'm going to advocate for free college, means tested for folks under a certain income level, and absolving student debt for folks under a certain level. The GI Bill created unprecedented prosperity, broad-based prosperity and economic vitality in this country. It was not really afforded to people of color, and so that was a blemish.
Wait, sir, sorry. Why was that? There were obviously lots of people of color in the military, disproportionate, in fact. So how did that happen that you're saying they didn't get to use it?
This is important historical. This is why we need to understand history and where racism, the systemic racism, comes from, because Black servicemen would go to Black colleges, and there just weren't enough Black colleges because of our discrimination at that time in this country. So it really was a way that they were kept out of going to college because of the GI Bill. they weren't allowed to go to white colleges, and there just weren't enough Black colleges. And so my point is that we should enable all kids who are qualified and make sure that they have a great K-12 education, so that they are, because they can absolutely do the work in college with a good K-12 education, enable them to go to college. That would only benefit all of us, because we would all then have the benefit of their economic vitality and their creativity. And for me, I was so fortunate. It was really in business school where, I devoted myself in college really to learning more outside the classroom. And we did wonderful things. We restarted the Interracial Concerns Committee with my great friend and still friend, Jeffrey Jameson, and John Houston, a classmate. And we did wonderful things in college. At Dartmouth College. But it was in business school where I really applied myself to understand that every single thing I do to learn in school, I can then use later to advance. I wasn't thinking about advancing my own career. I didn't focus on that. I was just thinking about how can I then use this in the future to create a better society, better environment. We did some things in the business school too to create volunteer programs as well. But that was when you have a purpose, and this is important for kids in K-12, kids that are in schools where they don't necessarily feel that the culture is speaking to them. They need to get out. Companies need to provide internships for every single high school student so that they can see what the world is like and see their own future in our society, whether it's in a company, whether it's in a civic organization, because when kids see their future and they envision what it can be, that it's not a dead end, then they develop a self-efficacy, and they develop a sense that, oh, I'm going to now go back to school and apply myself. And so that's really what happened to me when I was in business school. Every second, I just tried to learn. I wasn't trying to get grades per se, but I tried every minute to understand and learn as much as possible. I had wonderful classmates who helped me, and because I knew I could use it later. And I would just, I really stress the importance of that for all kids.
Thank you for that. I should tell you, by the way, every time I say your name, our Alexa is going off here. So
that's right. In our house it as well. And I'm worried that she's listening to us too after we say my name.
Let's see here. Look at this. Nicole says, related to Gene. She's asking.
Yes. Gene Rossides is my father, and as we had mentioned earlier, he just recently passed away, and we miss him dearly. And he was just a great dad.
Well, for those of you who missed it, Gene Rossides, who served 2 presidents and was a lawyer. And there's in his New York Times obituary, they focused also on his work, but also on his career in his college career as a football player for Columbia, and a historic game that he helped win against Army, one of the first televised games. And he passed away this year in May during the time of COVID, which would have been very difficult for Alex and the family. So our hearts go out to them. Mohammed asks, I have observed whoever's done great from America or anywhere else, there have been connections to a religious journey. What is your religious journey, if at all?
Yes, no, it's a wonderful question. And I'm going to answer that. And just one quick thing about fathers. Some folks do not have fathers. My father did not have a father. He was fortunate that his grandfather moved in with them and helped, because his mother worked 2 jobs. And one of the leading child experts once told me, what's most important is that a child has a caring, loving, at least one caring, loving adult in their life that they can count on. And so for everybody not fortunate enough to have a father, or might have lost them, and we all know these folks, just all of us, takes a village, it's family to lend a hand, and they will do well. And to the spiritual question, I am a universal Unitarian. And what that means, we were brought up in the Greek Orthodox tradition, not heavily religious, and we respect all religion. The universal Unitarians believe really in humanism. They believe in peace and love, and their ethos is really much in the vein of Erasmus. It was started by a number of leading individuals in the country, and Emerson and the like. And their philosophy is just, brotherhood and sisterhood. For those who want to believe in a higher power, they are welcoming. They're welcoming of all faiths, but their real focus is on human love and leading with love. And that is just, to me, that is my religion. So that's my higher power. And I find that in all religions, in the depth of them, do unto others and love is really at the core. So thank you for that question.
And Nicole says we're cousins.
I can't read it. I have to put on my glasses.
That's okay. Nicole Nerulius says that we are cousins because she's related to Jean.
Yes, and is your father? Does your father run a Greek business network in New York? If so, I have met him, and he's a wonderful man.
And this is how small the world is. Nicole was a student at Columbia when I was there, and she's a good friend. And she now lives partly in India because she married an Indian American, and they've gone back to India and they work there. So this is strange how everything comes together. And Rick says he's decided to attend the conference and make a donation to Social Impact Exchange.
Well, that is so sweet of you. Well, I'm gonna find your registration, Rick, and we'll connect with you. Thank you so much.
So tell us how people can sign up, where they go, what they will learn, and how they can support Social Impact Exchange if they can't make it or for some other reason can't attend.
That's so thank you, Sree. So the best way, because the URL is just too long, the best way to connect to the conference is go to www.socialimpactexchange.org. Top left corner, there's a conference banner, or if you scroll down on that front page, you'll get to the conference, and you just click on it and it'll take you to the conference website, and you can sign up. And as I said, it's really quite reasonable. That's our website there. I think it's $99 for a nonprofit or individual, and funders or corporations, it's slightly more. And you will really learn you'll learn how to get involved in ways that will drive systemic impact, high leveraged ways. But the most important thing is, if you feel like, whoa, I can't help change the education system or the health system, in fact, you can. There are lots of ways for individuals who are not big foundations to engage in the kinds of activities that will drive systemic change. It may happen in your neighborhood. It may happen in your local city. It just happen in your institution. And in addition, it's through millions of conversations that we begin to change our attitudes towards and beliefs towards the kinds of things that really are driving inequities. The whole movement around gay marriage shifted when people started to talk about, shouldn't everybody get to marry the person that they love? And these conversations just happened, all over the country. And so what I would encourage folks to come, you'll learn a ton about kinds of things that can be done in health and education, in the health system, how to focus on prevention, how to focus on keeping people healthy versus treating people all the time. And not that people don't need to be treated. However, the systemic change there is to go a little upstream and work on prevention. So you'll learn about all kinds of things in health, education, as we said, capitalism and business, and really about how we drive systemic change so that we don't go back to what was that we continue to make progress.
That's so well put and so much and so needed. And Nicole says that's her dad, and let's talk later. So that's great. And Robert Anthony, one of my dear friends, says Colombia's epic 1947 upset victory over Army is still talked about every year at Colombia's homecoming football game. Your father left a great legacy of athletic and academic excellence.
Thank you, and I want a great dad, and and just a life of public service, which I encourage everybody. He always said this too. He said, "Get involved," and that was one of the great things that some others have said this, including Michael Jordan. The most important thing is just to be in the game. It doesn't matter if you win or lose. Be in the game. And from my father's perspective, it was get engaged, volunteer, if you want to get involved in politics, great. But if you want to get involved in anything else, if in this country, we all engage and think about, our theme of our conference is unifying leadership. And we need that now more than ever. And so if you're getting engaged, everybody can be a unifying leader. Think about how you can just volunteer, bring people together around common goals and purpose. And if we all lead in that way, I guarantee you this country will thrive like it's never thrived before.
Nicole says, nice plaque of him at Baker Field. Also, I always say hi to him when I was there for games.
That's so nice of you, Nicole.
And before we let Alex go, I'm going to give him a moment to think about this question about positivity and how he's going to stay positive over the next 44 days as every rotten thing in the world is going to be injected into this race. And so I'm going to have him think about that for a second, because Bob also said, hi, that reminds me that Sundays are busy days around here. And we had our newsletter, a Sunday newsletter went out. And so if it's in your inbox, please grab it and open it. Otherwise, if you haven't got it, you can find it at sreenet.substack.com, sreenet.substack.com. In it, Bob Anthony writes a weekly tech tip that you don't want to miss. And I'm just showing this to Alex. This was a photo I took. I didn't get to go into the Met, Alex, but I drove by and took this photo, and the Met is now open again. And that feels really good. And that's one of the reasons we live in New York City. You don't live too far away from the Museum Mile, that we live in New York so that we can go out to places like that. And what I wrote just in my article here is 2020 was a year in which the simplest, easiest, and most non-political of acts, wearing a mask, became political. Now the most political of acts, the selection of a Supreme Court justice, has been injected into it. And we'll talk to Alex about that in just a second. But here is the tech tip from @NewYorkBob. That's Bob Anthony, who's a great Colombian and obviously knows his Colombia history as well. And he talked about TikTok and WeChat and what all of that means. And so please sign up for my newsletter if you haven't already. It's sreenet.substack.com, substack.com. And please sign up, and you'll get a letter every single Sunday that some people have said is very helpful and very useful. So we love hearing that. So now over to Alex, who's actually writing down what he's going to say. So he's going to drop some wisdom in here. He's also, a rare person who on a show like this has talked about very high ideals and talked about the role of mentors and all of that, and also dropped Michael Jordan a couple of times in here. So I'm now expecting something very special, not to put a lot of pressure on him, but these are his final thoughts for the moment.
Sree, that's very kind of you. The question, how do you stay positive? For me, and I don't know if this is helpful to others, but I think just share your love, share yourself with others, your family, your friends, but reach out to others and forge those connections, forge those relationships, do those good deeds, seek to understand other people. Those human relationships are so enriching. When I get frustrated, and I really do, and sometimes I get really upset by what's going on. And you try to focus on the relationships that you can have an impact on, and you can. I've always said that every single person has the power to change other people's lives. You have miraculous powers to do that, to be a mentor of kids, to do lots of things. There's so many stories about people who have just given to somebody else and it completely turned their life around. So one, just get back to people and make your connections and forge your relationships. And then I would just say, in terms of this political environment that we'll be in, talk to your heart about what's really important. I would not focus on different policy platforms, this or that. That's just me, because those things will change some. Where the different people stand, the different politicians stand. But what do you feel? What are the principles that you feel are important? To me, it's being able to come together and unify and move forward together, not leaving anybody behind, nobody behind, right, left, high income, low income, and around our common purpose and our ideals, and not be polarized. But find what principles are important to you, and focus on those versus all the rhetoric or all the critiques. I just think that in a leader of the United States, free world, that those character traits, those principles are just so important in our leader and all of our leaders, but a particular leader of our country. And I do hope that the selection of a Supreme Court justice adheres to the higher principles and does not devolve into politics, that there are higher principles, and this is a democracy of the people, for the people, and by the people. And the people should have a role in this momentous decision because of the importance of the court. So here's my hope, that all the politicians and the senators stick to their principles versus their politics.
Thank you. So beautifully put. I'm not as optimistic as you at that very end there, because we've seen the politics has already been injected into this, and it has become so political, and it always has been. But one of the things that we know is that one of my previous guests put it beautifully, said, is there one party or one person who wants you not to vote and is worried about your voting, then that should tell you all you need to know about whether this is the right person for you to vote for. And that's, to be continued. Alex, I've learned so much. I'm so grateful to you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your optimism. Thank you for your positivity. And I hope we can meet in person, and hope you'll come back and talk to us. Before you go, one more time, where can they find the conference and why should they attend?
www.socialimpactexchange.org. Top left corner, there's a link, or scroll down. You are going to learn about how to change the world as an individual or as part of an organization, in education, health, fighting racial inequity, making a more equitable capitalist system. And I guarantee you, it will be worth your while to learn along with us. And Sree, just thank you. 194 days. Just keep it up. It's a great testament, example for us to follow. And thank you so much for having me. And I really enjoyed our conversation. Thank you to all your audience too, and your sponsors.
Thank you. And thanks very much, Alex. We'll see you soon. Wasn't he fantastic? Alex Rossides. Please check out the socialimpactexchange.org and their fabulous conference, which starts this week. So please check it out. And thank you all for being here. Thank you for your support. One of the things that we do on the show, we asked Kimberly Crenshaw, the great Columbia Law School professor, what can we do to support folks and be allies of the Black community? And she said, say their name. So we will do that in just a minute. In the meantime, I just want to thank everybody for being here. Want to tell you that starting this week, my students at Stony Brook School of Journalism in our course on digital innovation. We've been studying this particular show and how it's put together and how do you do innovation in the middle of a pandemic. And so those students are going to help me, and you're going to see some of them pop in to ask questions over the next couple of weeks. They're going to pick the shows. They're going to pick the guests. One of their critiques of my show was that, boy, you have a lot of people who are old, and they were meaning that I'm old. And I told them we've had everybody from the age of 7 to probably 77 or 87 or older. But they said, so we're going to get you some younger guests. So that's going to be fun to see what they do. So over the next 3 weeks, multiple shows will be booked and produced by my Stony Brook University undergrad students. So let's see who they come up with and who they bring on the air with me. Thank you again for your support. Thank you to our fabulous sponsors who make it possible for us to do this. Nunbelievable.com, divinely delicious cookies on a mission, 20% off with the code Sree, S-R-E-E. Thank you to The Inventor in You, a step-by-step guide to your first invention by Charles Cunnincarroll at Inventor Charles, a guide to invention.com. Please check out Muckrack Academy, Fundamentals of Social Media, free, on-demand certification course that anyone can take anywhere in the world. I should have told Alex about this, though he doesn't need it because he is social media free, which is amazing. Here are just some of the 4,000 people who've taken the course sharing their wonderful certificates and saying so many nice things about the course. So anybody can sign up and attend free anywhere in the world. I encourage you to do that. Also want to thank She's on Call, my friends and surgeons, Dr. Sujana Chandrasekhar and Dr. Marina Kurian, and their guests every Sunday at 11 a.m. Eastern. Please check out what they did today. Promotional consideration also provided by... And many thanks to hotstar.com/US. Please check them out. Now we shall say their names. This is a cover of Time magazine that you may have seen. Titus Kaffir's incredibly sad and poignant painting on the left. You see the blue glove of the pandemic. You see the names of people killed by police brutality, police violence. You see the child stolen from the mom. And on the right, you're seeing a picture, a photograph, an undated photograph of young Larcinia Floyd with George as a young boy. And Larcinia would die 2 years almost to the day that he was killed, murdered on video by a police officer in Minneapolis. And now they're buried together in Houston. And now I will say the names that are around that border. Thank you so much for joining me in saying those names. Trayvon Martin, Yvette Smith, Eric Garner, Michael Brown, Laquan McDonald, Tanisha Anderson, Akai Gurley, Tamir Rice, Jerame Reed, Natasha McKenna, Eric Harris, Walter Scott, Freddie Gray, William Chapman, Sandra Bland, Darius Stewart, Samuel Dubose, Janet Wilson, Kaylin Rockmore, Alton Sterling, Philando Castile, Joseph Mann, Terrence Crutcher, Chad Robertson, Jordan Edwards, Aaron Bailey, Stefan Clark, Danny Ray Thomas, Antoine Rose, Botham Jean, Tatiana Jefferson, Michael Dean, Ahmad Arbery, Breonna Taylor, and George Floyd. That's not everyone. That's just some of the folks. One of our viewers, Rahajan, put together a list going back to 1944. Stunning 5-page list. Even on the names I read, some of them are sadly household names, and some of them are names you've never heard of, and that's also sad. And that tells you that every one of those people had a story, had a life, had loves and relationships, and all of them are worth knowing about. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for all you do to support this show. Thank you for being here on a regular basis. If you would like to know when we're live and to support us, you can always send us ideas on how we can collaborate together, what we can do more together. We also do these shows for other organizations. We do virtual events. That's another way to support us. People, when they say, boy, Sree, you have a great job, you just talk to people. This is not my job. This is our ad for our job. but this is something we take so seriously, as we have for 194 days. And we're able to do this because we're able to produce shows for other people, and would love your help in getting the word out on that. So if you have a virtual event or want a talk show of your own, talk to us. And you can subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/SreeNet, where you'll see all the shows. And if you would like to know when we're live, you can just if you hold up your phone right now, you'll get a gentle alert every time I'm on live on WhatsApp. It is not yet another WhatsApp group. It's just a gentle alert to tell you that I am live. And with that, I'm going to say goodbye. Thank you so much, everybody, for your time, your attention, and your love these last 194 days. We have our 200th episode coming up on Saturday. We'll tell you what that is. We're planning some interesting things, as always. And thank you so much, everybody, for being here. Please have a great week. Be safe out there. So important. And we are seeing even more comments coming in, and we really appreciate all of you. Please take care and stay safe. Wear a mask if you can every time you go out. Bye.